You're listening to Puma Podcast.
Sa mga nagtatanong, yes po, tuloy na tuloy ang kaso. Di pwedeng ganon-ganon na lang. Ano siya? Sinuswerte? Alam ko madaming sinasaktan dyan. Natatakot lang magsumbong at mahal kasi nila. Oo, mahal natin, pero sobrang mali manakit. Babae tayo. May karapatan tayo. That was Jelly Al's statement on Facebook last Tuesday, March 11, confirming that she is pushing forward with her case against Jam Ignacio. Jelly Al thought she was going to marry the man she loved. Instead, she says he left her bruised and battered. The vlogger and DJ accused her fiancé, businessman Jam Ignacio, of physically assaulting her. A busted lip, a swollen eye, and deep bruises. Al shared the photos online, then took her case to the National Bureau of Investigation. Ignacio has since apologized and asked for another chance. But Au isn't backing down. The wedding is off, and she's pursuing legal action. Jelly Au's case sparked outrage, but for thousands of women, it was all too familiar. In 2023 alone, the Philippine National Police recorded over 11,000 cases of violence against women, but the real number, much higher. Many cases never make it to the police. Many women never come forward. So why is seeking justice still so difficult? And why do so many survivors fall through the cracks? I'm Kate Burbano, and today, we unpack the legal gaps that leave many women unprotected. To help us understand the legal landscape and the realities on the ground, I spoke with attorney Alex Castro, a lawyer, women's rights advocate, and founder of Youth Against Sexual Harassment. She explained what the law covers, where it falls short, and what must be done to strengthen protections for survivors. So hi, Attorney Castro, and welcome to Teka Teka. Let's start with the legal landscape. Can you walk us through what existing laws protect women from violence in the Philippines?
Well, the most relevant law when it comes to violence against women and children is, of course, the Anti-Vowsy Act or Republic Act number 9262. Um, the thing is, actually, this is a very potent act because it takes into consideration talaga the landscape in the Philippines. It was crafted to address yung troubles, issues of Filipino women dun sa kanilang domestic setting. So, sa Anti-Vowsy Act, it punishes or merong four prohibited acts dyan or kinds of abuse. It's physical, sexual, psychological, and economic violence or abuse. Physical violence or abuse, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. Inflicting any kind of harm, like yung pananapak, pananampal, pagpapaso ng sigarilyo. So, and other forms. So, any physical harm covered dyan. Yung sexual violence, also pretty explanatory, self-explanatory. Although, yun siya, siguro parang rape, yung acts of lasciviousness, unwanted groping, basta any non-consensual sexual act is covered by that. And I think I have to emphasize this before we move on to the other kinds of abuse. Yung sexual violence kasi, or the trouble with this is may misconception na once you're in a relationship, for example, or you're married, na walang kind of sexual abuse na pwedeng mangyari. Kasi parang pag nagpakasal ka or you enter into a relationship, ang tingin ng mga tao parang blanket consent yan na you can do whatever anytime. There are some senators, I think, who believe that. So, yung mga ganong issues tayo ngayon. But that's not the case. Marriage or entering into a relationship or even consenting to a single sexual act is not blanket consent. There's never blanket consent. So, kahit na kasal kayo, ay pwede pa rin mangyari yung tinatawag natin na marital rape, for example. So, next kind of abuse is psychological abuse. Ito yung any form of emotional or mental psychological na violence tulad ng intimidation, stalking, anything that can inflict fear of imminent threat dun sa tao, or psychological manipulation, kasama dyan. Gaslighting, yan yung mga, di ba, popular forms ngayon, kasama yan dyan. And then economic abuse or violence, this is actually the least known actually, kind of abuse pala under the law. It involves, by its name, no, economic. So, it's any form of, siguro, infringement dun sa economic or earning capacity ng partner. So, for example, ito yung pinagbabawalan yung asawa na magtrabaho para wala siyang independence. May ganong kind of control or manipulation and abuse na para hindi siya umalis, for example, sa relationship, masigurado mo na doon lang siya, sa'yo lang siya, is pipigilan mo siya magkaroon ng sarili niyang pera.
Attorney, you mentioned that the anti-VAUSI law covers not just physical and sexual abuse, but also psychological and economic abuse. But in practice, and based on your observation as a lawyer and as a women's rights advocate, do courts and law enforcement take all these types of violence seriously and equally?
No, that's a good question. Actually, yung ranking niya, nung how I discussed it, parang yun yung pinakakilala, pinaka-acknowledge to the least niya. So, of course, physical kasi, ano tayo parang, syempre, you can't deny that. Yan yung nakikita talaga ng tao, may pasa, may sugat. So, alam na nila agad na parang, there's some form of harm that was inflicted, mali yan. Yung sexual abuse, parang, it takes a lesser form than physical kasi there's that challenge of going against yung paniniwala, yung culture natin na yun nga, hindi nga natin alam may marital rape hindi nga natin alam na culturally na pwede pala yun, na pag you're in a relationship ay you still have to ask for your partner's consent. So, yung sunod naman, yung economic and psychological and then economic, siguro in terms of practice, those are the two kinds of abuse that are most difficult to prove and to prosecute. Na kahit ano pa lang yan, fiscal level, later siguro we'll go to what the process is, what it looks like, ano yung pagdadaanan ng mga complaints for VAUSI. But fiscal level pa lang, as hindi pa siya nagiging criminal case, kakafile mo pala ng complaint, marami mga complaints na nade-dismiss, hindi nakakatungtong sa korte.
Thank you for that, attorney. Now, as you know, Tessa Prieto, a well-known Filipino socialite, recently filed a complaint against her former partner Angel Chua, who is a Cebu-based entrepreneur in the construction industry, under the anti-VAUSI law, or RA 9262. So this case brings to light an important discussion point. While RA 9262 is often perceived as addressing male perpetrators, how does it apply to situations like Prieto's, which involve same-sex relationships?
That's a very big misconception kasi whenever I talk about VAUSI, for example, sa mga avenues, sa mga venues na ganito, parang nagugulat sila whenever I say na any person can be charged with VAUSI. Kasi kahit na sinasabi natin violence against women and children, it doesn't specify naman the sex of the perpetrator. Hindi naman sinabing violence against women and children by men. So, if you read the law, actually, it doesn't specify. It says any person who inflicts yung physical, sexual, psychological, economic abuse against a woman or her child with whom he or she has had a dating or sexual relationship with, that's VAUSI. So, maganda tong recent case of Tessa Prieto. I'm not saying na maganda na nangyari sa kanya. It's a very, very tragic case. But maganda in a sense na people are starting to talk about how women can also be charged with VAUSI. I think when it comes to that particular issue, it's very straightforward naman. Parang the problem really is on the implementation side. Kasi actually, I'll be honest I'm a very big fan of this law, itong Anti-Vowsy Act. Kasi it's a well-crafted, it's a very comprehensive and very well thought of na law. It actually covers a lot of things. Kasi I've seen a lot of laws, of course, na, like, for example, special laws that tackle different issues like the anti-rape law, etc. Pero isa to dun sa mga batas na ano talaga, it's very detailed and ang gaganda ng mga remedies afforded to complainants. The problem really is on spreading information, building awareness dun sa batas na to. Kasi hindi siya nako-communicate talaga ng maayos.
Attorney, the anti-Vowsy law has been around for more than 20 years, but we still hear about cases of survivors that struggle to get justice. So why do you think that is? What are the most common roadblocks that women encounter when filing these cases?
It's really the fact that women don't file. And yung thing kasi is, actually, this is addressed under the act na if you read it, merong provision dyan which talks about battered woman syndrome, which is a type of post-traumatic stress disorder, so PTSD. Yung thing kasi is that because of the abuse, na it alters your psychological state, na parang ano ito yung mga, we hear about it a lot. Ito yung mga parang masama na siya sa'yo, pero bakit ayaw mong iwan? Yung ganon. Or bakit ayaw mong mag-file? Or ito yung mga naririnig siguro natin na cases na, for example, nag-break na sila, and then kasi sobrang sama ng partner, nananakit yung partner, abusive, tapos parang 3 months after, biglang makikita mo okay na pala, nagpo-post na ulit sa social media. And then, parang they don't file cases for Vowsy, they don't prosecute, they don't even think about it. Balik lang sila ng balik dun sa person. That's the number one na roadblock to prosecuting cases. It's because of this battered woman syndrome. We have a tendency to blame women for this or to shame them actually or judge them na parang, girl, parang medyo susunga-sunga ka ha. Tapos, or nakakapagod ka na, napag-usapan na natin tapos ito na naman. But actually, we have to understand that this is a serious disorder and it's real ha. Ask any psychiatrist, psychologist na it's a real disorder kasi nga PTSD siya. What happens is parang the psyche is altered in such a way that they're stuck in that cycle. Tapos hindi sila makalabas. It's not that they're ignoring na parang trip ko lang ulit, napahirapan yung sarili ko, so papasok ako ulit dito. That's not the case. It's really that hindi na nila yung nakikita. Hindi na nila naiisip yon. Sobrang altered na nung pag-iisip nila. It's because of the abuse. So, yun siya, na because of this, it's sad to think nga kasi diba, na parang may abuse na na-inflict and it's because of that abuse na hindi mo ma-prosecute yung abuse. So, it's a circular problem culturally na hindi tayo naniniwala na if a woman is being abused by the man or the partner, the husband in most cases, ay na dapat tanggalin natin siya doon. Hindi. Parang you have to stay there, keep the family together. That's why women don't file. They feel like they will be shamed, they will be judged, tapos they will be humiliated, alam mo yun, they will be called out na dahil lang, why are you filing a case against your husband? Why are you leaving your husband or your partner? Okay, so yun yung mga most common. But sige, sabihin natin dun sa mga rare cases, I say rare because the prosecution rate in the Philippines is very low. So, but dun sa mga cases naman na file, yung difficulty is number one, I told you kanina na meron pa rin tayong implementation, execution problem dun sa batas in that there are a lot of yung justice system natin, hindi pa masyadong naiintindihan yung nuances of violence against women or domestic abuse. Ano pa sila? Kaya nga, di ba, parang magugulat ka pag in practice, talagang parang, what? We still don't understand psychological violence. We still don't understand economic violence. It's really heartbreaking. So, kahit na na-file, ang daming cases na nade-dismiss or complaints even na nade-dismiss dahil lang, yun nga, hindi natin naiintindihan yung concept of what abuse is. We don't know how to tag it. Tapos, yung second is that most of the abuse kasi, especially since we're a very patriarchal society, oo, yung culture natin, really, it's the men in power eh. I'm not saying that, that women can't be perpetrators of bawsi. It's really the men in power. So, sila yung parang, they have the influence. Tapos, yung culture natin, our society is built that way na all protections and advantages, yung privileges ay sa mga lalaki. So, how does this translate to prosecution? Pag nag-file ka ng case, ang daming nagwi-withdraw or biglang hindi na lang nagpapakita ng mga complainants, witnesses kasi tinatakot sila or kahit di tinatakot, parang dahil nga sa abuse na takot na sila. Dahil, for example, women, yung most na narinig ko from my clients, parang nag-file ng case, may takot na parang, hala, attorney, baka gantihan ako nito. Alam ko kung ano yung kaya niyang gawin. Yes, alam ko yung kaya niyang gawin. Or for example, mayaman yung pamilya nito, maraming pera yan. Malaki yung very powerful family yan. Very a political family, well-known family. Yan yung mga ganun. Tapos sometimes yung it's the financial strain on the woman also. Kasi parang na siya either, especially for victims, for example, of survivors of economic abuse, yung may financial damage sa kanila, and then prosecuting a case is a very, I'm not, I'm not gonna say very, kasi there are ways to prosecute ng, efficiently and cost-effective. But parang most of the time, hindi natin mapagkakaila na it takes money, it takes time, it takes resources to prosecute a case. Yung magagather ka pa lang ng evidence, yung logistically, yung transportation mo, yung psychiatric cost, yung for the treatment also, na since PTSD nga you have battered woman syndrome, yung you have to treat yourself. Tapos, papamedico legal ka pa. Papa-examine ka pa sa doktor. Titreat yung injuries or something, ganyan. Maghahanap ka ng bagong bahay kasi you're trying to hide from this person. Parang may mga ganitong considerations na make it hard for women to prosecute cases.
Let's talk about women with fewer resources. Would you say they face different challenges in getting justice? Or how does their situation compare to those with more privilege?
Okay, so, yeah, maraming challenges, of course. I think we can imagine naman how much more difficult it is for people to have fewer resources in general. There are ways naman na to prosecute. Na, for example, even the law affords na if you can't engage your private prosecutor or a private lawyer na to handle your case, may mag-handle yan for you, PAO, Public Attorney's Office. The law also grants the complainants a lot of remedies. For example, if kailangan nila ng tulong from certain government agencies like the DSWD, NBI, PNP, aside from PAO, parang yan, pwede silang lumapit doon. So, maganda actually yung we mentioned in the start na this law was crafted taking into consideration the local landscape here in the Philippines, na marami siyang napasok talaga. It's a very potent law if we know how to use it. So, yun lang siya, na if we really study it and if we help others become aware about it, kahit yung mga ganyang challenges na lack of resources, etc., marami tayong pwedeng magawa. We just have to be creative, crafty about the prosecution. It is required under the law na lahat, dapat nga diba sa PNP, NBI, may women's desk. Although meron naman sila. But barangays kasi, they need to have yung BAU desk also. Hindi lahat meron. We have a problem with execution and implementation. And even dun sa mga meron, there's still a problem with execution and implementation still, in that maraming mga misapplication of the law or yung mga failure to apply the law. If a crime kasi is not being committed in front of a police officer or an enforcement agency, they can't apprehend eh. That's the general rule ha. Ano yung mga primary considerations natin when it happens? First is safety. So, minsan, pagka may lumalapit na ganyan or may nagtatanong, unang question is, are you safe? May imminent threat ba, risk, na some grave danger na kinakaharap natin? We have to know. Kasi ito yung mga kailangan makapunta tayo agad sa, ito, babalik tayo sa barangay. Kasi, siguro, I'll give a general discussion muna ng remedies and why these are important. We need to know this kasi meron tayong tinatawag na protection orders that can be issued under the Anti-VAUSI Act. First is the BPO, Barangay Protection Order, TPO, Temporary Protection Order, and then PPO, Permanent Protection Order. The first, by its name, we talked about it, is issued by the barangay. It's actually one of the easiest things to get. Kasi, pag pumunta ka sa barangay, they are required to issue the protection order on the same day. Tapos, hindi yan naghihiring. Siyempre, hindi naman judge ang mga barangay kagawad natin, ganyan. So, they have to issue and it's effective for 15 days. The reason why the law makes this that way is kasi kailangan mo nga na immediate remedy eh. Nang mabilisang remedy na easily available to you, siguro minsan kapitbahay natin yung barangay hall, pwede mag-issue yung barangay agad. Tapos at least we have 15 days to assess our options. What is a protection order pala? Sorry, let's go back. What is a protection order? It's basically an order stating na kung ano yung mga hindi pwedeng gawin ni respondent or ni accused. So, kasama dyan yung, for example, syempre, hindi kanya pwedeng saktan, he has to or she has to stop hurting you. Hindi siya pwedeng lumapit sa'yo, hindi kanya pwedeng i-stalk, hindi kanya pwedeng tawagan, puntahan ka sa bahay, hindi pwedeng puntahan yung anak mo sa eskwelahan, hindi pwedeng lumapit ng however meters, whatever meters, ganyan, dun sa place of your work, your workplace. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-send ng mga emails, yung mga ganon. So, or it can also include pala provisions. Like for example, sige, while we're litigating the case, we're gonna direct him to, in the meantime, provide support for your child. Tapos, and provide support to you as the spouse. Kasama dyan yung magbibigay tayo ng provisions to make sure na safe, saka housed yung complainant. So, yung bahay na tinitira nila, na family home, kahit nasa pangalan yan, yung nakatitulo yan dun sa perpetrator, patitira natin muna. Doon mo natitira si child and si asawa or si partner. Yung kotse, kahit nakapangalan yan dun sa perpetrator, ay kailangan ng transportation eh. So, ipagamit natin dun sa complainant. So, kasama siya doon na pwede nilang i-issue sa protection order because it is a form of protection. So, some people find this unfair by saying na parang, wow, nakapangalan sa akin, ibibigay sa kanya. Or hindi pa nga proven yung violence, tapos pagsusupport ako, parang medyo unfair. But we have to understand na given the gravity and the landscape in the Philippines when it comes to domestic violence, na we have to put yung the bias and also yung ano talaga, that the scales have to be tilted naman in favor of the women. I always say this, which is on a related note, some people complain kasi na parang, wow, this is a form of discrimination against men kasi bakit walang violence against men and children? O nasasaktan din naman kami. So parang niloloko rin naman kami ng mga asawa namin or something. So parang minsan they talk about it na this is so unfair. There are so many remedies under the law that are against us. But again, we have to understand given the cultural, historical na oppression and violence committed against women, and we have to take that into consideration. That's what the law is trying to address, na trying to level the playing field naman onte by affording them more protections because they need it. They're usually on the receiving end of these kinds of abuses. I'm not saying na exclusively primarily. So, ayun siya, kaya important yon. So, anyway, going back, kaya ganyan yung itsura that's why protection orders are crafted that way. Kasi ano siya talaga, na parang let's level the playing field. Ganun yung itsura niya. So, going back, so we have the barangay protection order. So, sinabi ko kanina, the rationale behind it is really to provide you time na to breathe a little, tapos put together a complaint and an application for a protection order na ifa-file mo with the court. So, ang TPO and ang PPO, temporary and permanent protection order, can only be issued by the courts. So, diretso yan sa korte. Ano siya, yung TPO is effective for 30 days at a time. Renewable yan, na until the court gets to decide na, should I issue a permanent protection order or not? Kasi ang permanent protection order, permanent nga walang expiration period yan unless the court says na wala tayong reason to issue a permanent protection order. In fairness kaya I say this is a potent law kasi the remedies are effective once they're in place. I mean, pagka na-hurdle mo na yung mga challenges ng filing a complaint, prosecuting ganyan, despite resources, once na nag-take effect yung mga remedies na yan, like the protection orders, it's very strong and it's very effective. Ano siya kasi ang violation of a protection order, it will specify naman kung ano yung penalties, but it's usually, pwede ka makulong dyan. So, pwedeng, for example, hindi ka nagbigay ng support, sabi ni court ay magbigay ka ng support under the protection order. Pwede kang ikulong. Lumapit ka dun sa bahay, tumawag ka, sabing bawal Pwede kang ikulong. So, syempre, pagka ganun, medyo mas may ngipin na siya na parang ayaw ko makulong, ganyan. Tapos, additionally, pwede din yung may payment of a fine which is sometimes can be a very hefty fine. So, they really avoid yung instances ng violation ng protection order because, yun nga, there are real consequences to it. Kaya, if you get to that point, yun naman yung kagandahan ng batas na in fairness dun sa remedies, they're very effective.
Attorney Castro, as the founder of Youth Against Sexual Harassment, I'd like to touch on that as well. With the rise of social media, we're seeing more cases of online harassment and digital abuse. Do you think our current laws are strong enough to protect women, especially young women, from these emerging threats?
I'm a fan of this law, pero I would have to admit na parang that's one thing na it doesn't take into consideration that much. Yung cyber aspect of the crime. Tapos, while we have different laws kasi, kulang Parang nandun pa tayo sa traditional na context and parang thinking when this law was crafted. Ngayon, nagbabago na Nandito na yung mga pag-leak, for example, ng mga intimate photos, cyber stalking, cyber harassment, etc. Parang marami ng ibang mga threats ngayon, hindi yan na-address. But I think naman there are efforts from mostly Senator Risa Ontiveros na kasi diba sa Safe Spaces Act, for example, that's one of the first laws that directly addresses yung issue on cyber violence in general. Kasi if you read the law, maganda rin siya kasi marami ng mga na-tackle doon na, for example, yan, cyber stalking, yung mga pretending to be other people, catfishing, mga ganun something, yung sending of or reproducing intimate photos without consent. Well, nasa Anti-Voyeurism Act din yun. Tapos, even yung yung mga, for example, nag-report ka, tapos hinaharas ka online, dahil ni-report mo, that has happened to me, parang, it's a real threat na parang before, but it happened before the Safe Spaces Act. So, naintindihan ko at that time na parang, wow, may lapses talaga sa batas. But it's good that we have the Safe Spaces Act now. Pero may mga problems din yan about implementation. There are a lot of scenarios that we haven't taken into consideration.
Attorney, as you know, leaving an abusive relationship isn't always as simple as just walking away. So if a woman is afraid to file a case, what are some first steps she can take? And beyond the legal side of things, what kind of support systems are out there to help her leave safely?
Sige, practical answer and also from practice. Doon muna tayo sa the first thing that these women need to do or yung mga complainants is really parang muna, aside from yung safety issue na napag-usapan natin, na make sure first na you're safe. If parang merong situation that you need to get yourself out of immediately, parang there are ways to do that. na, ayun nga, may mga pwede tayong lapitan, aside from yung sinabi ko kanina na matuto tayo to avail of the Barangay Protection Order, etc., saka mag-avail ng mga DSWD, PNP remedies under the law. Pero, kasi primary talaga is safety. Tapos, pangalawa, kasi, ano na yan, medyo forward, ano na yan, parang step 3 na siguro yan eh, yung consider if you wanna file a case. Nandun pa tayo sa seek psychosocial or psychological first aid first. Parang ano siya, it's one of the things na even when clients go to us na parang, I wanna file a case, we tell them first na, you know what, parang ano siya, maybe see a therapist or a psychiatrist first na have yourself evaluated and then treated if kailangan. Kasi yung pinagdaanan is not, hindi siya maliit na bagay. Mabigat yan. There are long-term effects psychologically and parang of course, parang may misconception si mga tao na parang, alam mo yon sometimes na natutuwa kami or gusto namin pag may mga lumalapit tapos sasabihin, hindi, mag-file tayo ng case agad kasi income sa amin yon. That's not the case. Parang the priority really is sometimes we discourage yung filing agad kasi we're concerned about the clients na you have to be psychologically cleared first and really ready na to pursue this kasi this will open up, of course, yung mga wounds. Oo, tapos you will have to relive the experience. Parang ibabalik mo na naman yung sarili mo dun sa state na parang of fear kasi you're recalling. So, nandun kami lagi sa psychological first aid first. Tapos, when you're ready, after you've undergone treatment, then we can talk about filing the case. Kasi, yun yung isa sa mga things. So, parang, uh, yon kung magtatanong sa akin na parang, or nag-hesitate to file a case, na parang, yun yung like kong sagot na, alam mo, saka na pag-usapan yon na saka na natin isipin or puntahan yung topic ng, should I file a case or not? Doon muna tayo sa practical na remedies muna tayo na humane, alam mo yon na pag-usapan muna natin kung okay ka lang ba. Tapos, may kailangan ka ba na parang, alam mo yun, to get a hold of things first na before we go to the legal side. But if you're really intent on filing a case, nag-decide ka na talaga na parang, I am ready mentally, emotionally for this. Tapos, I have thought about it, I'm decided, walang imminent threat sa akin, I'm safe now. Tapos, I just wanna pursue this for whatever reason, kasi ito yung form of justice ko. Then, yung akin is, dito na papasok yung preservation of evidence. So, resibo muna. So, parang yan yung, kung may screenshots, ganyan. Sometimes kasi people worry na parang, hindi po ako hindi ko na picture yung mga pasa ko kasi hindi na ako nakapag-isip nun. I mean, better if, talaga, documented lahat. But it doesn't have to be the case kasi there are ways to prosecute naman without those kinds of evidence. Again, it just goes down to crafty prosecution. And even courts, they sometimes, even the testimony of the complainant is enough to convict. Kahit wala kang ibang ebidensya, wala kang pictures, wala kang medical legal report, wala kang psychiatric evaluation, okay siya. Basta kung very truthful yung narration mo, tapos nakita ng court hindi ka nagsisinungaling, kahit sinabi mo lang na pinagdaanan ko to, sometimes they convict. So, pero, yun, advice pa rin, practical advice is, ayan siya, na parang, kahit na hesitant, or naisip mo na parang hindi ko pa sure kung mag-file ako, yun yung advice namin lagi. Okay, sure, but just preserve everything. Write down your narration if you can, tapos para at least baka makalimutan mo. We can go back to it if you decide. Tapos, yun, so, moving on pa na onte sa next steps, parang kung decided ka na talaga, then, yun, you engage a lawyer. Pwedeng pumunta sa PNP kasi they can file the complaint for you. Tapos, PAO is mandated, we talked about this earlier, PAO is mandated to handle vouchy cases ng mga complainants na walang lawyer or don't have the means to engage lawyers. Tapos, yon, marami rin naman mga private firms na offer services. And then, may mga schools din that offer legal aid. So, yan yung mga first, mga 5 steps siguro ganyan sa mga hindi pa sure na kung gusto mag-file or naka-experience ng some form of violence or abuse.
And now for our last question, attorney. You've touched on the key aspects of this issue, but before we wrap up, I'd like to ask, what advice would you give to anyone listening who has a friend or family member in an abusive situation? What's the best way they can offer support?
First is really educate ourselves about the law. Tapos yung mga nuances ng batas, yun nga, yung mga objective, yung rational ng batas. Kasi di ba napag-usapan natin to kanina na maraming beses na nakaka-contribute pa tayo dun sa harm o na-experience ng tao kasi we judge too quickly. Tapos imbes na we provide yung good support na talagang akma dun sa situation, minsan parang hindi pa natin nabibigay yun kasi may mga sarili tayong beliefs na and biases dun sa situation, dun sa batas. So, pero siguro one of the, if parang may main takeaway, saka practical tip that I can give, really educate ourselves about the battered woman syndrome and the effects of PTSD. Kasi most of yung mga harmful behavior that we do or yung mga harm that we inflict on complainants is really because hindi natin to naiintindihan. Baka tataas yung chance na mapipigilan natin if it happens to someone close to us. Kasi matatag natin na may mali na nangyari, magsusumbong ako sa police, magsusumbong ako sa abogado or something, or parang ipaparescue ko na siya, yung mga ganong klase ng mga remedies. And then, ayun lagi, always na parang if you're, kasi sometimes kami third persons napapasok. Sometimes it's difficult for them to hear when we tell them na parang, yon baka you need psychological first aid, or parang baka you need to consider this or something, na parang kailangan nating isipin na how to refer to them then na to services na baka you wanna consider if you wanna avail of remedies or something. Parang ganun. So, yun, yung I think mga 3 things. Pero, pasimplihin ko, yun, educate yourselves about PTSD, battered woman syndrome. Second, educate yourselves about VAUSI. Learn how to identify yung mga types of abuse. And then third, just really be a good friend in that, alam mo yun, learn how to give emotional, psychological support pag kailangan, and then how to tell your friend also if kailangan niya na to consider availing of services.
Attorney Alex Castro, thank you for sharing your insights on the challenges that victim survivors face and how the law addresses violence against women. This discussion highlights the legal protections in place, the barriers that remain, and the need to strengthen enforcement and support systems. If you or someone you know needs assistance, there are organizations that offer legal aid and psychological support. We will include resource links and contact numbers in the episode caption. This episode was edited by Anthony Tobias and produced by Julia Medina. I'm Kate Burbano, and this has been Teka Teka. Thank you for listening.